Hi, my name is Jonathan. Welcome to the Haystack. So, who are the 10 lost tribes? Where are they? And how can we know? How are we gathering them? Easy. We're doing missionary work. Who are the 10 lost tribes? Well, everyone has the potential to be numbered among them. We're all given that gift and potential. It's all up to our own choice. The 10 lost tribes are the elect. They're the pure in heart. They are the ones who are of Israel, who let God prevail in their lives. I think it's interesting right now that many missionaries, they won't teach somebody if the person just refuses to read the Book of Mormon. That makes sense. Because the pure in heart are people who are earnestly seeking truth. And I think it's funny because I've seen a lot of people leave the church, question things about the church or teaching or something about that, but then see them take up more ridiculous other beliefs. Ridiculous to me, at least, right? So, doing ceremonial things in the temple may be weird to somebody, but doing a graduation ceremony, or even when I sworn to the state police, we had to look over at the wall of the fallen troopers, and our sergeant would give us something to say, and we'd repeat after that. And then basically we're asking permission to accept our ridiculous hat and put it on our head. And there's some really nice, genuine meaning there. But yeah, it's odd for anyone who comes from outside of that. It's odd for anybody who goes from one church to another. The 10 lost tribes are people who are being gathered. In Jacob 5, the allegory of the olive tree, on the third visit, the Lord of the vineyard sees that all of his trees have become corrupted. And he is mourning this. And he's looking around and just, what could I have done more? And the servant says, well, let's not give up on this. Lord of the vineyard says, okay, do exactly as I say. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go back to the original tree, the tame tree, and we are going to, cut off the more bitter branches. And what we're going to do is take the best ones and graft them over here. Graft them as you're cutting it off the tree and putting it on another tree with a limb that's been cut, and you put dung and manure, put them together, wrap it up, and then the branches fuse. So this, for us, is missionary work. So before that, the Lord of the vineyard and his servant, they let the vineyard grow for a while. They had put in a lot of work, and they said, all right, let's see what happens. They come back, and it's all messed up. So this time, they're like, yeah, we're not leaving that long again. This is what we're going to do. We're going to work at it. We're going to keep an eye constantly on it. My servants are going to be on this at all times. In fact, go get more servants. And that's what we're doing right now. Now, the gathering of Israel, it's funny because in the allegory of the olive tree, at least to my knowledge, maybe it's there, maybe it's not, I haven't seen, but it doesn't list. It lists the house of Israel as being that tame olive tree, the covenant people. But it doesn't list like 12 trees or 10 or anything like that, I don't think. But what it says to me is that we're gathering all into one. And at the end, you have the main tree being grafted, taken to other places, other tree branches taken over and brought over. Here, you're letting it grow, see what becomes of it. But with the more growth and the more trimming and everything, you're preparing for a large harvest. And we've been a part of that this entire time. So this is the important part. I want you guys to take away from this. So 10 means, a form of completion and starting over onto a new set. It also depicts uniformity and gathering. So it's united, composed together. It's gathered together. So perhaps if we started looking at the gathering of the 10 tribes of Israel, we looked at it as the gathering the pure in heart of the pure in heart. Because there's this discussion of whether there's a huge mass of people who will come over into the church, and it's already been likened to temple work. It's been likened to our missionary work. If there would be a large mass of people that came as the 10 lost tribes, that would simply be all of the people that are left after the Lord has come and accepted his church, and his church has received him. And once he comes down and says, hey, this is my church, then you would probably see a lot of people go, oh, you know what? I know about those guys. And they'd probably all come over in a large group, prepared to start taking missionary lessons and to participate in ordinances. And the changes in the temple, the speed and frequency that these temples are going up all over the world is showing not only that these need to be accessible to everybody, but that it also doesn't take as many temple workers to orchestrate and conduct a regular session all over. So the Lord is doing his own work. How are we kept safe in Zion? Well, we've been building up Zion since first vision. Since Joseph Smith first bore testimony of seeing the Father and the Son. So Zion, just like President Nelson said, is wherever the pure in heart are. Thus, we are putting temples where they are. They're all over the world. Find it significant that the Savior would come to his temple. Now, he likened the restructuring and strengthening of the foundation of the Salt Lake Temple, echoing what Brigham Young had also said, but saying that this is going to last well into the millennium. So he showed that in General Conference. The next thing he shows in General Conference is a depiction of Christ coming down from heaven in his resurrected form down to the temple in Bountiful among the Nephites. What were going on with the Nephites? They were in the middle of fixing up their temple, which had undergone some destruction in the ensuing earthquakes and tribulations that had come on the land. But they heard the voice of the Lord They cried, then they took heart, and they got to work. Notice when the Savior comes. It's not when they finished fixing up the temple. In fact, the temple that they have still only stands simply because it had a sturdy foundation. Thus, those people still existed because they were more righteous than others. They had a more firm foundation. Christ spoke of the temple in Jerusalem, that temple would be torn down, that not even a stone would not be overturned or left standing. We know that he's referring to himself, but he's also referring to that didn't get built up right away. The building of temples is a reflection of the covenant which God has made with people, with mankind here on the earth. Temples come as covenant people come. And we are getting to a point where more and more people, Jews especially, are receiving Christ. How much longer until they start receiving the Book of Mormon? I mean, we do have people who were Jews growing up who are now members of the church. And there's some who are diving into the Book of Mormon and revealing insights into that just prove that it came from God. There's no way Joseph Smith would put such revelatory information and doctrine into a book, just make it all up, no rewrites, nothing like that, and then have so much encoded teachings and doctrine, even in the language and the names and the processes and the patterns that we see. I mean, he not the best scam artist in the world could do that. So people who truly do study the scriptures, everybody I know who has this resentment against the church or feeling of how the church operates or how God operates, who have left, they're very critical of it. But then I go, well, I get why you're critical. The things you're critical of are not things that we teach. I could see that you think that. If I thought that, or if that's what happened, I'd be pretty critical. I'd be pretty upset too. But no, you sound like you've heard about it, but you never really dove and strove to understand the scriptures. And this goes back to the allegory of the olive trees. So thinking about applying it to me and my calling, I was thinking about how I can better serve in my area. We know that we're getting grafted branches taken off. Maybe it's growing well over there. It's taken off and put over here. And we go, man, why did they release me from that calling? Or why did we end up moving here? Or why did I get this job? Or why did they let me go? Or we weren't planning on having kids. Or why are we not having kids? And then the master and the servants of the vineyard go and bond you here. You go through some growing pains, fusing into the branch. It's because the the master of the vineyard and his servants, the servants operate off of the master's plan. And the servants do exactly as he commands. It's the master of the vineyard who knows what he wants us to be. And we've already seen what we do on our own. It's not pretty. So let's do this with the Lord. Maybe you don't like the way that you're trimmed or the area that you're grafted into. Maybe the growing pains and the fusing to the grafting is taking a little too long. Maybe we see some of these shallow roots sticking up in the soil, in hard soil. So I liken this to some people in our ward I was thinking about. And obviously I won't name names, but there's been some hesitancy or some resistance to get the elders engaged with us in our missionary efforts. And then there's been some hesitance to be more effective. This idea of missionary work that we'll just be good friends. We'll be friends with them and love them from afar. And when they're ready, they'll come. Well, no. Yeah, there's some people who go through the worst things, and they come to the church and they find it themselves. Being directed by the Lord, but my goodness, it's offering, hey, I know this non-member needs help with overcoming an addiction. Maybe missionaries and I can go over, if you introduce us, and help them overcome that addiction. And then it went straight to, we have an addiction recovery class they can go to and everything. And I'm like, but they got a family. It must not be hard for them in their medical issue their medical issue that they need to resolve by overcoming this addiction. I mean, who's going to watch the kids? Why not engage and use the resources? How about this? Are you suggesting that we just call up Salt Lake, say, hey, we got it. Don't even send the missionaries. We don't need them anymore. I don't want to be in that land or that vineyard or that tree or on that branch of the people that say that. Now, obviously, they didn't say that. But my goodness, they might as well have. Hey, don't worry about this. We haven't had baptisms in years, except for those 9-year-olds of people who aren't really engaged anyways. So, gosh, we're trying to get people to the temple. This sit back. We're not finding the elect if we're not inviting the elect. If we're not inviting at all. I mean, here we have servants, and they're being told, no thanks. It's something I fought on the mission is I just went, fine. Not going to get too much help. I get you guys are complacent. You grew up, everyone you know is LDS and less active. You don't want to spoil a relationship. You know what? Some of that hard dirt and those roots, those surface roots, you got to dig it up. You might chop some of those surface roots, but you got to loosen that soil, and you got to ensure that tree's not so shallow that it's going to topple over, that it digs in for deeps, and they start asking them these important questions. They ask themselves, well, do I believe this? What do I believe? talked about this one family, and I'm like, well, that's great. We'll be friends with them from afar. I mean, but that's commanded of us with all people. Here we have specific callings, and we're speaking about specific people. Perhaps our plan should be specific. Perhaps we should pray and come to know and understand what does this person love? What is their testimony right now? Why is it that they want to come back? Is it a social thing? They want their kids to fit in with everybody else? Or do they believe in something? Do they believe in Jesus Christ? Well, I guess she does, yeah. I'm like, oh, well, let's go off of that, please. My goodness. And perhaps I'm too abrasive, but I feel like we're going to be held accountable for many things. And there's a reason there's been huge growth in certain areas and people placed in certain areas. And I understand that there's some grafting pains and some healing going on, but we gotta stop thinking that we're gonna spend all our time planting seeds our entire life when it's harvest time. I mean, we can't just let the fruit spoil. The pure in heart, these are people who, I mean, you're cautious about inviting them. Maybe they're cautious about asking you. Who needs to make the change? They'll never know they can make the change if we don't put our foot forward and do exactly the very, very thing that we came here to do. We came here to serve the Lord in His vineyard. We got to get off our butts and start doing something. Sorry, I'm venting a lot in this one, so appreciate anyone who's listened to this. But I hope that there's a little bit of reflection in there, and that we can recognize within ourselves our wards, our areas, our callings, whatever we can do. Recognize that we are where we are for a reason. It's a blessing. And we gotta just put away all this other stuff that doesn't even matter. Start focusing on the people who are asking themselves these important questions. And not be so nervous to answer them. Answer them honestly. We're like apologetic, like, oh yeah, I believe in, yeah, I read the Book of Mormon, well, yeah, well, yeah. No, I believe in the Book of Mormon. It is a true record of God. It was translated by a prophet of God. It was used for the restoring of His people. It's used for the harvest. We have it for a purpose. We got to use it. I've been shut down by a lot of people, but I mean, I really don't care. The invitation comes out of love, not like a numbers game, not like in the mission office we're like, all right, how many numbers we got? Well, let's throw our next business plan out and see if we can motivate people, and well, that's not how the experience happened, but I can probably put a twist on that and make it sound nice for all the other elders and sisters. Oh my gosh. It's as simple as just loving the people. You love them. You're compelled to share the gospel. You're studying it. You have it on your mind. You have it in your heart. You see, oh my gosh, hey, you have a question about this? You know, that's funny. I was just studying about this. Let me tell you a little bit. In fact, let me just ask you some questions. What do you believe? Why do you believe it? Why do you think you're here? And are you doing what you are here for? Now, if we ask ourselves that, can we also ask, am I someone the Lord is going to ask to come and serve in his vineyard? Is he going to say, hey, I want you to work on this tree, when I've done nothing but complain about how many branches there are and complain, why do I have to move these over there? Why do I have to dig up stuff? I don't want to harm the roots. I'm too nervous to harm the roots. I know I got to dig it up, but I might ruin something. You're hiding your talent. And I don't have many talents. The only thing I have is a love for people and the gospel. And even when I spit it out, it doesn't even come out as well as I feel like I understand it. So maybe I should read more. Anyways, take care.